All right, welcome to our reading the DC Pride Poem a Day reading, part of Outright 2023. First, before the event starts, we would like to thank Gilead and the Mayor's Office on LGBTQ Affairs for their continued support of Outright and all our Center Arts. Welcome to our reading the DC Pride Poem a Day reading, part of Outright 2023, to continue programming. To continue to share our stories regardless of the artistic medium. So please join us in thanking them for their support and sit back while we play a brief sponsor video.
The average baseball stadium holds about 50,000 people, enough to fill a dance floor the size of a New York City block. It was also the number of people in the US who became HIV positive every year since 2003. Then, something happened. One by one, we said, enough is enough. Instead of waiting for a cure, we took action. We got tested and retested. We talked to each other, and we talked to healthcare providers about HIV prevention options. People living with HIV started treatment right away and stuck to it, which can prevent the spread of HIV through sex. New infections went down, but we still have work to do. So let's all do our part and keep fighting, because together we can all help stop the virus. Find out what you can do at helpstopthevirus.com.
All right, thank you, and please enjoy.
Welcome. My name is Kim Roberts, and this is Outright DC 2023, and this is a panel celebrating the DC Pride Poem a Day project. This is a project that I've done with Jon Gann, a filmmaker and local artist who we got together and decided we wanted to do something that would really highlight some of the literature of DC during the month of June in honor of National Pride Month. And so for the past 2 Junes, we have released a short video of a DC area poet reading an original poem, one video released each day, and the videos have been fantastic. They're short, they're moving, they're charming. Some of them are as short as half a minute long, some are as long as 6 minutes. It really has been just a wonderful celebratory way to get a dose of literature every day during June. So in 2023, our theme was Poems on Heritage. And you can find all of the 30 short videos archived online at pridepoems.com. We also have the first year we did it, which the theme was queer love, and those are archived online as well. So once again, that's pridepoems.com. And I feel very fortunate that we have 7 of the 30 poets who were featured in 2023 with us today. They're going to read some of their work. Some of it will be on that theme of heritage and some will not be. So I just wanted each poet to give you a little sense of who they are as a writer. Before we get started, I want to make sure that I thank Outright DC, especially Emily Holland, especially all of the volunteers who worked on this. I want to also extend my thanks to the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs for sponsorship, and to Loyalty Books. A reminder that you can find the authors who are being featured in this project. You can find their work through the Loyalty Bookstore. We'll be starting out with Callie McCarthy. Callie currently resides in Washington, D.C., and over the last decade has contributed her labor to the work of gardens, archives, museums, progressive churches, and global research networks. Her writing often explores the experience of inhabiting a body, but it just as frequently narrates memories of family and food. She's been published in Christian Century and in Fleshed. Please welcome Callie McCarthy.
Thank you so much, Kim, and hello, everyone. Today, I'll share two poems that explore the texture of care and affection. This first poem is called A Testament of Love in the Yogurt Aisle of the Mansfield ShopRite. Every day, for the last 27 years, my father has worn a self-appointed uniform of khaki pants, a collared button-down blue and white pinstripe shirt with a Land's End navy blue V-necked sweater. He readily admits that he cannot multitask, and yet he buys me yogurt. In the supermarket parking lot, he deposits 25 cents to release the contraption that locks one cart to the next, jangling the chain and freeing the big basket on wheels. Probably he doesn't need it. It's overkill for 32 ounces of semi-solid milk, but he is a man who appreciates ritual. Following the perimeter of the store, the refrigerated path to the promised land of culturally sound bacteria, he arrives in aisle 21 and consults his list. It says Stonyfield Greek, non-fat, vanilla yogurt. He consults the wall. It says organic fruit on the bottom with almonds, sans fat, gluten-free, bound to make you joyful and prosperous. Please consider reading The Paradox of Choice. The refrigerator case is a matrix of variables, a prime application of conditional probability statements. My father has never excelled in math. Nevertheless, he skims the non-fat selections. He cannot find one to my specifications. He pulls out his phone and dials. I am in his favorites list, but he is of a generation that commits to memory the phone numbers of the people they love. I am in class and my phone is on vibrate. He leaves a message, asks me to call him back. He wants to make sure that he's looking for the right thing. To pass the time until my class ends, he walks around the store, takes his blood pressure. At the machine near the pharmacy counter, it's 110/78. He writes it down, will tell us all at dinner how impressive it is, especially for a man of his age. He checks his phone. I haven't called back, but he needs to return to work. He hedges his bets and walks to the courtesy desk, explains that there's no Stonyfield Greek, non-fat, vanilla yogurt in aisle 21. On their loudspeaker, they interrupt Maroon 5 to ask someone in dairy to call 245, someone in dairy to call 245. Dairy calls 245. There is a case of my yogurt in the back. They ask how much he wants. One container will last me a week. Maybe he knows this, maybe he doesn't. As long as I've known him, my dad has steadfastly believed in buying in bulk. He asks for 3. So one thing that I would like to offer as we enter into this second and last poem is that my name is pronounced Callie. With that, I present to you, We Don't Eat Rocks. My 2-year-old nephew has many words, more than 400. There's a spreadsheet newly decommissioned because the accelerating pace of his expanding diction surpassed the utility of real-time record keeping. But even with all of these words, my nephew still reaches for them, pointing and repeating to us what is so very clear to him. For all of the shapes that his mouth has learned to make, for all of the Sundays that we have toddled and walked and eaten pasta with teeth, baked a cake from the perch of his helper tower, sat in the tub while I sat on the lidded toilet, while my sister kneeled on the floor, doling out shampoo and body wash enough for my nephew and his pelican and his duck, he has yet to bestow upon me the name of aunt, calling me instead Kai, the first syllable clipped and quick, the elusive L eclipsing his tongue. I tell myself that Kai, plain and simple, is an expression of non-hierarchical relationality, and maybe one day it will be, but today it's an irrelevant fib to distract me into patience as he settles into his body. My sister is teaching my 2-year-old nephew how to eat cherries without obstructing his respiratory tract. She tells him that cherries have pits, that we don't eat pits, that pits are like rocks, that we don't eat rocks. She tells him to take tiny bites. To my mother's surprise, my sister has been feeding my nephew solid food since before he had teeth, and I know from his magpie ways at the playground that my nephew is well acquainted with rocks, so I shouldn't have been surprised, but still my heart did a little pitter-patter when my 2-year-old nephew took a tiny bite and adeptly spit out a pit the width of his windpipe, because it means that regardless of the constraints of his expressive vocabulary, this little being of human has a grasp on metaphor, and me, oh my, like and as are the scaffolds of my mind, the only way I know to learn something yet unknown, beckoning tangential points, weaving them into fractal patterns of our very world. And now, him and me, we share this, and I love that for us.
Thank you so much, Callie. 2 terrific pieces. The first poem that you read, Callie, is the one that is featured in DC Pride Poem a Day. Our next reader is Mariah Barber, who I did see come in. Can we get her on screen? Okay, she is not coming up. We are going to come back to Mariah. That means our next reader is Alex Kerrigan.
Hi, hello.
There we go. There we go. Great to see you. So Alex Kerrigan is a Pushcart nominated editor, poet, and critic from Virginia. His debut poetry chapbook, May All Our Pain Be Champagne, a collection of Real Housewives Twitter poetry, was longlisted for the Perennial Press's 2022 Chapbook Awards. And his newest book has just come out. Alex, can you hold up a copy of the book? Yes. So Now Let's Get Brunch was just released. I believe that was last month. Is that correct, Alex?
In June.
In June. Terrific. Congratulations. He's had fiction, poetry, and literary reviews published in Quail Bell Magazine, Lambda Literary Review, Barrel House, and the anthology Stories About Penises. Please welcome Alex Kerrigan.
Thank you. All right. So first, my piece that was part of the Pride Poems. This poem was written after Jessie Bender's chapbook, Dangerous Women, and is for Henrietta Lacks. This is Color of Choice. Red was always around you and will always be what's left of you. The chips of nail polish that could be found under your bedroom vanity, the blood the doctors at Johns Hopkins drew from you for yet another test, the imprints left from digging your nails into your palms as the news is delivered. Red was around you the night you revealed your secret to the women in your life. You waited until you and your companions were at the top of the Ferris wheel before you told them you have cancer. Their faces turned red from the glow of the light bulbs along the rail. Or maybe it was the grief that was finally painted over them as they wished the world could move again. Red will always be around you, from the faces of your 5 crying babies to the dress you wear in your gallery portrait. You love red so much, you made sure it will always be around, for that color is the one bit of immortality drawn from you, separated into slides and test tubes, injected and radiated, shot into space, your life an ever-multiplying cluster of red circles pressed under glass, defying entropy and proving you will always be around. Thank you. So I am also going to read 3 pieces from Now Let's Get Brunch from Queerencia Press. So this is my first full length and was published back in June. This is a cento poetry collection of poems entirely created from the Twitter accounts of 40 famous drag queens. All right, so this first piece comes from the account of Adore Delano and is entitled Adore Delano Sees the Face of God in a Pizza Grease Stain. And I will give a content warning. This poem does include some foul language and references to misgendering. I don't blame Cardi for deleting her socials. This shit is yawn now. Normalize wearing AirPods in public spaces and pretending you're in a music video. Sometimes self-love is wearing a face mask while playing Jewel. I think we're going to hop back on the health journey. I think after 6 years of being vegetarian, I'm going to try to become vegan. I'll let you know how it's going in a month. I ate my weight in carbs in the lounge before the flight, and now I'm munching on chips and pretzels. I love memoirs. So far, I've read Elvira's, Drew Barrymore's, Miriam Margolyes, Goldie Hawn's, Jules, and Jessica Simpson's. I need to write a book soon. I accept all pronouns. He, she, they, them, princess. I always feel so bad when people misgender me, especially when they're older. I'm always like, no worries. Sorry, I'm a bad bitch. I live different lives each day, so I want us all to feel welcomed and safe at all times. Wow, me for president. I'm crying. All right. This next piece comes from the account of Jujubee and is entitled Jujubee Writes a Book to be Read on the Toilet. And no content warnings for this one. I keep reminding myself that this journey is so special and it's uniquely mine, just like yours is yours. I'm aging myself and not even mad about it. Spilling the beans because I'm old, gorgeous and old, head to toe beautiful. Great auntie in the streets, daddy in the sheets. It has to be 1,000 plus thread count sheets though. My skin is sensitive. We've got dinner plans Tuesday. Having a salad topped with sausage roll croutons. So excited. It's going to be filled with trauma. The peaks and valleys of life are the best reminders that we own nothing. Let's make the best of what we are given. Keep moving. Be light. Be love. This is how the best lemonade is made. I can't wait to have supper with you, but only if you wear a tracksuit. And to close out my section, this is a poem from my favorite drag queen, Katya. This poem is called Katya because who needs context? And for content warnings, there is foul language and sexual references. Ring in the new year with a lovely poem. Have you heard the news? I love Elizabeth Shue. Sick on tour and mad as hell? Well, they got you gals. My 2 moods, joyful and triple ecstatic. We come to this place for magic. Blazer on, without my blouse. That is how I leave the house. Diva, you were serving Hunty. Did Jean Smart win the Emmy? This is exactly the kind of energy I'm bringing into 2022. The only Ryan Murphy project that I'm interested in would be American Wig Story, Volume 1, Australian Wig Mystery. And it's just about Nicole Kidman's wigs. The wig alone is cruel and unusual punishment. She ate, snapped, and yeeted the wig into the lake. Do you think Nicole Kidman is going to win the Best Actress Oscar? Academy voters, please, I beg you not to overlook this performance by an actress in a major motion picture. There need to be way more roles in movies for actresses in their 50s. Are you a big old diva who lives to serve? No one is doing it like you, Miss Laurie. Getting ahead in Hollywood can be tough, but it helps to have 1 foot in the door. The length of my left foot is half an inch less than that of my right foot. Shout out to all my asymmetric divas stuffing that 1 shoe with who knows what. You know what's fierce? Otters are causing seagrass plants to have more sex. Work, diva. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Alex. I love this new series of work and just the sort of formal inventiveness that you're bringing to it.
Thank you.
So our next reader is Mariah, I believe is back on with us. There, hello, Mariah Barber. Mariah is an author, certified health education specialist, and researcher who's been working in public health for over a decade. Mariah holds a Master's of Public Health in Community, Social, and Behavioral Health, as well as a Bachelor's in Public Health with a concentration in Community Health, and a BA in International Studies with a concentration in Latin America. Her professional experience also includes working as a radio personality, spoken word artist, content curator, mentor, moderator, researcher, counselor, facilitator, writer, research advocate, organizer, teacher, podcaster, blogger, public speaker, and educator. Great list, which all influence the passion that she brings to public health initiatives. Mariah Barber.
Hi, everyone. I want to start with the poem from my Pride Poem a Day, and then go into two other pieces that, for me, talk about ancestry and also my queer identity. From what textbooks tell me, Mahatma Gandhi stood at a mere rather frail-looking man. He could have only been about 100 pounds soaking wet. But the peace he exuded from his palms pressed together in prayer were enough to straighten crooked views. The strength he carried in his heels was enough to weigh out the imbalance of apartheid that had held India in shackles for centuries. Stayed 6'1", more head than body, I had no idea of the strength he bore in his bones. His almond eyes have always possessed a wisdom well beyond his mere 16 years. My mother called me in the smallest voice I've ever heard escape her lips. Her words did more than not the wind out of me. She pinpricked the air from my lungs and she said, "What does your brother think he's doing? Join this gay straight alliance at the school? Does he not know who we are? Does he not know we're holy people? When I refused to sign the paperwork, he stopped eating my food. Who does he think he is? Gandhi or something?" I took a moment to reply to the fool of then said to him, "Much queen who's just leached out her bloodline with the dropping of her last sentence." I've always wondered if the dial tone hit my mother more like a red flag or a cold shower, causing her to see the beauty in what she intended to be an insult. Because in 2023, I'm proud to call my brother a modern day Gandhi in this world full of bigots. And I wish more people could clear their hate from their eyes, because it sits there like oil, blinding them to what true love really looks like. If my brother, I'd be his Bindi, his eye guiding him through the destruction of this world. I would warn him. The society likes to place Black queer people. That's why God built his bones like white columns on a temple. That's why God put all the knowledge between his temples. And to know when he's in the midst of four white walls, when they try to straitjacket his truth again, it's just society trying to place him in yet another box. And he's always been more a circular man to me, full of unity and life, and he's in good company. Compasses, kaleidoscopes, hell, even this earth. And remember, once they tried to flatten it straight out of fear too. So stand, even when others tell you you're not welcome to sit, cry out, even when you feel you fall on deaf ears, and claim it, even when they tell you your cause is forsaken. And remember, I love you, even when this world forsakes you. And after some time, realized I never actually hung up on my mother. Guess I just clicked over to the other line. But when Gandhi's calling me, who the hell am I to keep him waiting? Thank you. And now I want to do a second piece. This piece is really calling to my ancestry, to my grandmother, who I never got to come out to, but I feel would have been very accepting. She was on March on Washington, and she used to collect just diverse dolls. And I feel in the era of the Barbie movie, this is a great chair. My grandmother's name was Natalie Lindsay. She once marched on Washington to hear a king's speech, but that's not why she's revolutionary. My grandmother been collecting Black dolls for upwards of 50 years. Once trying to acquire a Black Santa Claus, the sales clerk told her it will be $100 more for the Black one. My grandmother looked down at her hands. She said, "If it's money in this melanin, then the state of Virginia owes me thousands of dollars for the white pay that my counterparts have received." My grandmother walked out that day with my Black Santa Claus under her arm, and she didn't have to pay more for it. My grandmother used to say She would carry black and brown Sharpies in her back pocket to color things in that they did not yet make in our hue, because we were here on purpose. We were purpose. We were worth being idolized. My grandmother said one day there'd be Barbies that looked like me. And even when she passed away, I still look down at my hands to carry on what my bloodline used to say. Back in 2020, the first brats that were ever queer were released, and I ran to the store to grab that box. And it made me think about how they always want to see Black people behind bars, but never in boxes, sold in stores, never wanting underrepresented dolls that other kids can idolize and finally see themselves. And I want to change that. And it all started with the Santa Claus. Sometimes I look down at my hands, push them together to pray or clap, and I think about my ancestral bloodline and how I'll pass these dolls down to my daughter one day, and she'll be able to see things that I never did and know that she can come out, that she can be beautiful, that she can be anything. And as I put these hands together, clap with me and sing. Grandma's hands clapped in church on Sunday morning. Grandma's hands played the tambourine so well. Grandma's hands used to issue me a warning. They'd say, baby, know your Blackness well. And I do. Thank you.
Wow, terrific. Thank you, Mariah. Your sound quality got a little better as you went along. I just want to say to anyone who's listening, if we missed out a little on the early part of the first poem that Mariah was reading, that's the one that's online. So please do go to pridepoems.com and you can watch the video. There's also the text available. Our next reader is Malik Thompson. Malik is a Black queer man from Washington, D.C. His work is featured or forthcoming in Cobra Milk, Sundog Lit, Diode, MQR Mixtape, Voicemail Poems, Poet Lore, and other places. He's received support from Lambda Literary, the Obsidian Foundation, Brooklyn Poets, Cave Canem, and other organizations. And he can be found on Instagram via the handle at Late Summer Star. Malik Thompson.
Hey Kim, it's good to see you. Hi everybody. Want to say thank you to Emily for organizing the festival and everyone who made Outright 2023 possible. It's nice to come back as a participant. I used to be the co-chair with my friend Marlena Chertok, so this is a nice full circle moment. I'm going to read 3 poems. The first poem I'm reading is the poem that's up on pridepoems.com 2023. This is Gabriel after Adrian Rich. O monstrous divinity, O gristled seraph with skull of man and star-bleached wing, your beautiful face veiled in dark fire, the coil and shudder of those insatiate flames, unspeaking beast fallen from the moon's umbral half, everyone's eidolon cloaked in the mythos of scripture. Archangel, you visit me nightly, in my bedroom looming for another hushed evening. Tender soul or impending tempest. You breathe wind into your celestial horn, unleashing a God-flecked squall, cracked asphalt washed off in hollowed rain. His message drenches his body, so I pull further back. His message drenches his body is a line from Adrian Rich's original poem, Gabriel, which is gorgeous, and you can read it on Academy of American Poets.org or poets.org. I forget the URL for the website, but it's there. Cool. So the next poem I'm going to read is actually from Pride Poems 2022, the first rendition of the project. And in a way, this is another sort of heritage poem. This is love poem Seder after Danica Kelly. Tonight, I set the chalice aside, and behind me, I finally shut the door. Out here, a chill wind speaks to me of wild trees and their cavortings of lightning. Love, I recall the stories you tell in languid night-drenched whispers. Our slender bed ablaze, dark fire pulsing in my bones. In your absence, I have become something lusting and something lost. I enter the pub and exit with a chain of paper men entangled in my horns. The final poem I'm going to read is a new poem. This is Safekeeping. Cast iron skillet eaten away by rust, a ring of blue fire flickering beneath it, the way smoke can emerge while nothing burns. In the dream, each time, the fires are slain by men who carry water from the town's only well. The women sing hymnals to an ink-stained sky emptied of stars. I watch one man carry a girl. She heaves in his sooted arms. Patches of black ash smudge her delicate temples. The birch trees sway in scorched wind, turning away from arcs of scarlet embers. Fields bereaved of cricket song hum. Smoke plumes die out with the flames. She heaves once again, this entire night, air and shadows, so much life pouring into her chest. Thank you.
Thank you, Malik. I love the way your poems embrace mystery and sort of mythos and dream states. It's just such exciting work to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Our next reader is Danielle Badra. Dani is a queer Arab-American poet originally from Michigan who is currently the Poet Laureate of Fairfax, Virginia. Her poems have appeared in Mizna, Guest House, Cincinnati Review, Duende, the Greensboro Review, Bad Pony, Rabbit Catastrophe Press, Split This Rock, Beltway Poetry Quarterly, and elsewhere. Dialogue with the Dead was her first book. It's a collection of contrapuntal poems in dialogue with her deceased sister. Her second book, Like We Still Speak, was winner of the 2021 Etel Adnan Poetry Prize and was published in 2021 by the University of Arkansas Press. Please welcome Danielle Badra.
Thank you so much, Kim. Thanks for bringing us together, and thank you to Outright for hosting this event. So I'm going to read 4 poems. The second poem that I read will be the one from Pride Poem a Day. So the first poem is Ode to Onion. Onion is the only thing I want to eat. My great uncle ate raw onion dipped in sugar for lunch. When my tears are meant for my ancestors, I'm more Lebanese than Michigander. My tears taste like red onion salt water. I lick them from my hands, a favorite meal. A meal I've shared with my sister before in a pillow fort. She cooked more often than me. I always did the dishes in the evening once the sun set. It is easier to focus on the moon crest out the kitchen window. I prefer the light of the moon to other forms of far light. If light must be distant, let it be moonlight. Flashlights in the coat closet, shadow puppets across a backlit wall. We were static after rubbing ears with withering minks. We were learning to curate our own culture. All right, this next one is Guzzle for Lost Women. Under the harvest moon, there is always a camel, and the camel is always a far lost woman, lost to the world she once inhabited of red wine and unleavened wafers. Woman wafting scent of orange blossoms seeping from utter syrup cooled on the kitchen counter. Counter to the culture of her mother who baked with anise seeds instead of walnuts. She walled herself inside her fearful heritage when the once world's center certainly collapsed. Collapsing her English into Arabic attempts for fresh watermelon, batikh woman. Batikh, her favorite word to pronounce when she was unfamiliar with phlegmy letters. Let her return to the camel, and the camel returned to her a sense of discomfort, like the day she hid beneath pines playing with the boy next door, a game that made her feel monstrous. The monsters under her mattress were really inside her all along. Terrorist woman, terrorized by the thought of an evil side to her bloodline of suicide bombers and martyrs. Martyrdom was never all that appealing in comparison to mediocrity, the average woman. Rage is relative to bloody knuckles and what it was they were fighting for. For her, Haria, freedom is relative to the laws that bind. She was bound only to her body, scarred woman. Scarab beetles stood for reincarnation in ancient Egypt, said to push across the sky the sun. Deadly woman, deep is your longing for the land of memories, dwelling place of desires, Al-Shams. And part of that last line is a Khalil Gibran quote. This next poem is Mama's Waltz, and it is in conversation with a journal entry that my mom wrote. Mama as child was loved less than bottles of gin, watched her world waltz off tempo while her mama imbibed. She hid, no one seeking her. Mama cuddled me, clinging to her leg like a merry-go-round ride. I learned how to hold happiness like a happenstance. And then this is the last poem. My love tells me to stop feeding my father so he can talk. But when he talks, he no longer sounds like himself. The dialect of his dementia is reminiscent of his childhood, which was half a century before mine, and sometimes I just want to watch him smile, a language that is never lost. I keep feeding him in his final days because he always closes his eyes to savor the flavors of a dark chocolate raspberry Godiva bar which dribbles down his chin. A slice of birthday cake which sticks to his dehydrated lips. A Coney Island hot dog I cut up into tiny bits and dab with ketchup and mustard. A still warm cinnamon bun freshly baked from LaRue's, where we always caught one last breakfast whenever I left Kalamazoo. His mother's baklava recipe I baked just for him the night before. He could barely eat one diamond because the phyllo made him choke. So I fed him orange blossom walnuts with a fork, and I cried while he closed his eyes, trying to remember his mother's soft hands, trying to imagine her waiting for him to finally let go.
Oh my, Danielle, that last poem especially, it's very moving. Thank you so much. That's Danielle Badra. Our next poet is Dan Vera. Dan is a first-generation Borderlands-born queer Tejano Latinx writer, editor, and literary historian of Cuban and Caribbean ancestry. Awarded the Oscar Wilde Award for Poetry and the Letras Latinas Red Hen Poetry Prize. He co-edited Iman Iman, Poets Writing from the Anzalduan Borderlands, and has authored 2 books of poetry, most recently Speaking Wiri Wiri, which came out from Red Hen Press. He's been featured by the Poetry Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts. He's in a number of anthologies. Dan lives in Washington, D.C. with his beloved husband, Pete, and his blessed dog, Blossom. Dan Vera.
Thanks, Kim. It's a real pleasure to read with all of you and to share poetry. The first poem I'm going to read is actually my poem from Pride Poem a Day. It's titled "To Live in That Country." Oops, sorry. To live in that country, glimpsed, imagined, and longed for. To live within those borders that once seemed impregnable, whose language baffled yet enticed, whose customs lay beyond all understanding, its shared traditions and inside jokes, its annual celebrations, its shared memorials to overcomings, to hard-fought victories. to beloveds lost and remembered, to have the joy of one day becoming a proud and cherished citizen of that country, barely imagined and never expected, to live in the country of our queer loving. My next poem's about a painter named Charles Demuth. When I met my now husband, Pete, he is from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So we would go and visit his family, and I discovered the house museum to Charles Demuth, this kind of amazing amazing painter who was friends with poets and painters, and his works in museums around the world. But he was also openly gay for his time, and so this is a poem that starts with a quote of his about moving back to Lancaster towards the end of his life. There is a crusade against vice in Lancaster. I am going home to speak for vice. Sugar vain flower lover, you arose from your mother Augusta's garden to draw the world precise and alive. The perfect geometry of this city, its factory lines abstracted, the pulsing curves of tulip and apple, red cabbage and rhubarb, the later revelations of warmer flowers in the baths of New York, the mystical code of numbers and sky, everything always alive in you. Deem, what amiable laugh did you have to charm the bitterest artist heart? Even Georgia the Scowl loved you, and William Carlos was smitten by your generosity. You are all but forgotten now on the brick streets of the city you returned to, where you spent your last days with the needle and the brush. At King and Duke Streets, your house is a museum now. Your watercolors, blossoms of petal and flesh, hang in sight of Augusta's Victorian flowered rose. The fruit, the vegetable, the silo, the cityscape in the front room, the nudes in the darkest corners, standing as you found them, gleaming in the wet caverns of joy. Um, this next poem is about a later cultural landmark written before the Barbie movie came out. It was for an anthology in celebration of a book about sort of Barbie poems by Denise DeHamel. Anyway, this poem is titled, I chose not to write about Barbie because I really didn't have a connection to Barbie. So this poem is titled Genitalia. One day, curiosity finally took hold of a little boy who held his breath to sneak inside his sister's room and steal her ken away to some private place where, undisturbed from prying eyes, he'd search for answers to an unspoken question. What cunning linguist named him Ken? From the Middle English, to make known, or the West Frisian, to know or feel, or most ironic, the obsolete Scottish, to catch sight of. There was nothing beneath Ken's fashion togs, but Mattel's cost-cutting strategy, less plastic to extrude, meant less to form, much less to amplify inside the mind of a curious boy, confounded by that false slab with its smooth surface of disappointment. But left to one's imagination, curiosity will only grow about other forms and the potential shapes of other packages. Now they come bundled in thrift stores, 4 or 5 naked boy dolls in a clear bag, Ken squeezed together with a wrestler, a buff soldier, warrior, or superhero, all freed from their form-fitting costumes, tan, brown, and pink flesh together, pressed in perpetual ghost frottage, like an afterlife of delight for every once curious boy, now grown old. And I guess I'm gonna finish with a poem, older poem, really about, I guess, a curse poem. I hate to end with that, but a curse poem about people who try to scrub the record. This is titled For Some Executors of Gay Writers. For the manuscript you kept locked up in a wall safe, for the diaries you made sure would not be discovered, for the letters from lovers you burned in the furnace, for the measures you took to tear out their tongues, for all of the ways you straightened the record, for the zeal with which you smothered all knowledge, for condemning the lovers to eternal silence. May you see their faces in each mirror you gaze in. May the names of their loved ones ring in your ears. May you wake in the night to the sound of their fucking and be forced to lose sleep to all of their groans. May the pages you hide catch fire from their smoldering till the wall safe explodes and consumes your house whole. May you escape to find your charmed life in ruins. May you call out in grief, but hear nothing but silence. Thank you.
Oh, hell yeah. Thank you so much. That was Dan Vera. Our final reader today is Natasha Saye. And Natasha is the author of 5 books of poems, the latest of which just came out. It is called The Future Will Call You Something Else. Do you want to hold it up, Natasha? Hooray. And it came out.
Actually, the official pub date is September, although I got early copies.
Okay. So it is available for pre-order from Tupelo Press. She's also the author of, in addition to that book, 4 other books of poems, a postmodern poetry handbook called Windows and Doors, A Poet Reads Literary Theory, and a memoir in essays, Terroir, Love Out of Place. She teaches in the Vermont College of Fine Arts MFA writing program and lives in Washington, D.C. Natasha Saye.
Thank you, Kim, Outright, and all of the other readers. It was a pleasure to hear you. I'm going to read 3 poems. I'll start with a short one from the new book. Is the sound still okay? A little echoey, but I'm in my hot sun porch. So this one has an epigraph from the 1967 film, The Graduate. If you've seen the movie, you'll recognize it. It's called, the poem's titled Gradual, and the epigraph is just one word, plastics. I wrench and cut the clear, thick film, envisioning its path to trash. And next, a hiding place where no one ever goes. This stuff gets smaller and smaller, micro to nano to who knows what. Every way you look at this, you lose. 1% of me is probably it already, seeding cells with particles through infinitesimal scissor teeth. The vision that was planted in my brain. In Latin, sapiens means wise. The future will call us something else. The next poem I'll read is titled Shh, which is a letter in Slavic languages, and it's quite literally an ancestry poem. My name in Slovenia, I'm Slovenian, my father was Slovenian, and my last name means soot. So my father used to say somebody was a chimney sweep, because in the, pre-mid-19th century, people didn't need last names, so they just took on the names of their professions or their locales. Anyway, so it's an S with a little V over the top, and that's the signal to pronounce it like sh instead of s or s. It's sh. So my name in Slovenian, first of all, it doesn't have that weird accent. The last the last name, my first publisher 35 years ago said, nobody's going to know how to pronounce your name. Why don't you add an accent to it? That's the last name. So I just went ahead and did it. And now when I go back to Slovenia, which is fairly often, I'm a little embarrassed. I try to leave it off. Anyway, they do have this letter. And this, I did a Fulbright in Slovenia about 20 years ago. So this comes out of that. At the room of a sleeping child, a finger to the threshold, teeth drawn together, hissing, softened by lips, echoed in the cave. Little roof, Stereshicha. Difference between a chocolatier, crush, and limestone, cross. White rocks struck by moon. As in sugar, which can be made from bees, cane, corn, maple, fruit, and milk. Its sweetness rhymes with bees. We say one thing is not another thing, and in this language, every letter is pronounced. Cup gathering a drop of sound, dusty taste of the water, filmed skin after walking in the river. Sound the residue of letters. I'd like a letter that splinters language from its parents to build a house of sticks overlooking the sea, letting waves instruct me. Air rushing through my teeth could have passed through the tailpipe of a bus. I want happiness without a hole in it, the heroine says, and the reader knows she's doomed to a life of rifts. Some ideas are so deep you can live in them, deeper than the highest mountains are high, subterranean stalactites forming gypsum flowers like wallpaper. In such darkness, the pale pink olm, his degenerated eyes covered by skin, can live to 100 years of age. One cousin of the newt or salamander, finding his way through smell. Even Proteus, shepherd of the sea's flocks, cannot protect him from polluted groundwater and his own rarity. He lives only in one place on earth, a place where shh is uttered, and might, if things were different, be a dragon in the ocean's waving fricative, or at least a snake with a crown, none poisonous in this quiet country. And the last poem I'll read is also from my new book, which contains a lot of epistolary poems. So they're letters addressed to people and things. And this one is addressed to Roe v. Wade. Dear Roe v. Wade, what a mess you're in, with red states eroding you like sand under a power wash of illogical laws, turning back time to Texas, 1969. I feel for women in Mississippi, listening to a doctor lie that abortions cause breast cancer and that the fetus can feel pain. Women waiting at the only clinic in the state. Dangerous, this personhood, this lie extending to an embryo the powers not accorded to the breathing women who care for and carry it over months. In 1973, I turned 18. I appreciate your gloss on do no harm, on history. In 1787, women were in this way less constrained by states than corpses are today. They can be forced to give birth. For whom is that the truth? We've made the Constitution our true guide, plus amendments carved in time, liberty and privacy, inherent rights for every citizen, even those as poor as Norma McCorvey, Roe, whose statement on the case reversed, pro to con for women. Yet privacy is a cloud with women's lives hovering like drops of rain. The truth, so many tears. Thanks to DNA, the state knows everywhere we go and sometimes when. If you had feelings, Roe v. Wade, you'd be blue, but you're a court case, judicial law, one that even Sarah Palin knows. Irrelevance is cruel, and thinking women feel their bodies occupied by menace while living in our land of lies. I availed myself of you at 29, and for access, I thank Maryland, my state. Personhood depends on power, and truth changes like a woman's chance to thrive within her gendered state, her malady. Thanks.
Wow, thank you. I can't wait to have a copy of this book in my greedy paws. So let's have everyone come back in again. I just want to say thank you to all of these amazing readers. There we go. Thank you. I hope gives you some sense of the amazing range and this richness and diversity of LGBTQ plus voices in Washington, D.C. Please do go check out all of the videos. There are 30 of them from this year, an additional 30 from last year at pridepoems.com. We repeated half of those voices in the second year. I am planning, Jon Gann and I are planning to do a third year of this project with poems on a different theme. So if you have not yet been featured and are interested in submitting work, I hope you'll also find me online. You can go to kimroberts.com, and I'm sorry, I'm kimroberts.org. I'm an org, and you can send me a note with your email address, and when it's time to submit poems again for the third year, I'd love to hear from as many other new voices as possible. I keep discovering more queer poets in DC. There's just the richness is amazing. So thank you again. Our readers once again were Callie McCarthy, Mariah Barber, Alex Kerrigan, Malik Thompson, Danielle Badra, Dan Vera, and Natasha Saye. And thank you again to Outright. Please do stay tuned we have so many other great panels and readings